evening. I would like to call the meeting of the Wareham School Committee to order. It is Thursday, December 19th. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast by WCTV and audio recorded by Jamie Wixton. Would you please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on the agenda is good news. Would anyone like to share some good news in the district? Joyce.
I just want to thank Mrs. Francesi from the middle school for the invite to the Christmas concert. She knows I always like to go every year. They did such a great job. They just look like they're having so much fun. And I think it's so cute that Mr. Francesi also comes and plays. I think he's also a music teacher, and he comes and plays with them. So it's really, really cool. And I went to the elementary school fair the other day. It looked like it was very successful for the PTA at the elementary school, so that was also a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to the high school report with information about the DECA trip and discussion on senior privileges. So, Mr. Palladino?
Thank you for having me. We'd like to request permission for DECA to be able to participate in 3 competitions. And as what happens is, the first competition is districts, which will be held at the Emerald Resort and Conference Center in Hyannis. And we have approximately 51 students that we would like to take there for that competition. From there, the students can qualify for states, so that number will be cut probably close to half. We average about 25 to 30 students to states. The states will take place from February 27th through March 1st. This takes place in approximately 5 hotels in Boston to be determined. And from there, we will have somewhere between 12 and 15 students that will qualify for nationals, also known as ICDC. And this will be in Orlando, Florida, April 26th through May 1st. And we're requesting permission for our students to participate in these events and to travel, obviously, and in all 3 cases, to stay overnight.
Any questions about details of these trips? Jeff?
So Mr. Palladino knows that I'm very concerned about the debt that is created by these trips.
Right.
And I have been confronted would be too strong a term. I have been told by multiple students in the recent past about the amount of debt they have accumulated and the implications for their ability to graduate without paying off that debt. So I need to get comfortable. I do not want to deny people the ability to go on these trips.
Right.
But I don't want them to feel extraordinary pressure, because fundraising, candidly, I'm a lousy fundraiser. Some people I know are wonderful fundraisers, and I hate to think that this pressure that we've created for kids, we have to do something about it. So do you have any thoughts or comments on this?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because there are many schools that have line items that help to offset the cost of these trips. So I know the budget's always tough, but there are a lot of schools, not every school, I just want to be clear, but a lot of schools have money set aside in the budget for these students to compete because it is part of the classroom. We have never done that, full disclosure, going all the way back to when I was in the classroom. We have never done that, but it is something that could be done to offset the costs for these students. What we do at this point in time, and have done for many years, is we offer a tremendous amount of opportunities to fundraise. And we have several students, multiple students, that take advantage of these opportunities and actually don't have to expend any money out of their pocket because they do all these fundraising opportunities. But it does require a lot of flexibility on your schedule to be able to do those fundraising opportunities, and they are done throughout the year. But at the very least, what those fundraising opportunities do, they offset the cost significantly even for a kid that can only be involved in a few of the opportunities. And it's not like they're going door to door. Like we had a craft show most recently in the gym in November. So the kids that work there, they get X amount of credit for the hours they do, and then that goes towards the cost of their competition. But to your point, if you make it all the way to ICDC, there is a tremendous burden on the students for those trips.
So what's the size? We are eligible for free lunch and breakfast for every child in our district, okay? Which is wonderful, okay?
Correct.
So it would seem to me that if any school district should have a line item, it should be those kinds of districts that have a lot of low-income students, and I know we have a lot of low-income students. What size line item would we need, do other districts have who have a line item for this, in order to make a significant difference to our students?
I'd love to do some research and speak to, I know the closest school that has a line item I know is Aponequid. I believe Durfee does as well. I'd want to do a little research before I just kind of throw out a number, if that's acceptable.
Oh, I would prefer you do the research.
Right, I'd rather say, you know, this is what, and give you some hard examples of this is what this school does. This is, you know, just to give you, you know, some facts on what they do. But I do know, I've heard from my business teachers for many years that, you know, we could really use a line item for this. We could really, you know, this school does it, this, and it's very difficult because, as you know, at some point in time, we're going to be tasked with trying to get within the budget that the town can afford for us, and we're going to be making cuts. And it's tough to add things to your budget. Usually I'm subtracting because I'm trying to save teachers.
I mean, we used to have athletic fees, okay? Thank goodness we no longer have those.
Right.
That was a very positive thing for our athletes. I'd like to do something positive for the business classes, because there's a lot of kids who do it. They really enjoy it. They do well.
Right.
So then I guess I'm going to challenge you to do that research.
Definitely.
And if we can't do anything this year, maybe we can do something next year. And maybe Kristen will work with you to see what's realistic. But I would greatly appreciate it if you could report back to us.
Absolutely.
Before we finalize next year's budget.
We will do that, and I will work with the DECA folks to get you those numbers, and I know they would be very appreciative of that effort. Even if it's just, you know, a little bit of money, that can go a long way.
I don't want a line item that's meaningless.
Right.
Okay? There's no point in having a meaningless.
Right.
I know there are limitations,
Sure.
obviously. I don't know if the superintendent has any thoughts on this, because it's his budget too. But do you have any thoughts on this?
We've talked about this before, and so I like the idea of Scott looking at what other schools are doing and coming up with a number, and let's see what that
Okay,
brings.
great. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Palladino, can a student choose not to attend any of these and without any kind of negative consequence?
Yes.
Okay.
These are, the student is selected. They also have to meet criteria, attendance, grades, behavior, et cetera. We have precluded some kids that didn't meet that criteria as well. Most of the kids are very passionate, as you know about it, and it's a great event. I know Dr. DeAndrea has been a judge. He's gone down for the award ceremony. Joyce has been involved as
And
well.
I'm going to do it.
And I heard, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
You're going to judge?
I'm going to judge, thanks to you. You know,
okay.
you got me involved, so
It's a pretty, if you have a chance to stick
I've
around.
never
for the-
done it before.
But if you have and I know Joyce has been to the award ceremony many times, if you have a chance to stick around for the award ceremony as well.
Well, it's the next day.
Yeah, it's
Unfortunately, the award ceremony is the next day.
right.
What, it's on the Cape or something?
Yeah,
Hyannis.
Hyannis, yeah.
It's if you have a chance to go back for the award ceremony, I would encourage you to do that. It's amazing. The energy is amazing, and just it's awesome seeing our kids get recognized and the excitement and the camaraderie. It's really it's a cool event. I am going to try my best to get down there. I was there last year. It was really it's awesome. A lot easier when it was in Falmouth, but
I was
that's
just
all
going
another
to say
story.
that Seacrest was so much easier. Yeah.
It's so much nicer too.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion to approve the DECA trips, overnight trips?
So moved.
Can I just ask a
Yep.
question? So You implied that they go into debt.
Yes.
And it affects their graduation. That isn't how it's always been.
It's been that way for 30 years. Basically, what happens is, we don't want any kid not to be able to go because of money. So what we do is, we kind of front that through their student activities, and then the student has to pay the back whatever it is per student for each level of the trip.
I mean, I've paid for all my kids to go on DECA
Yes, you
trips.
did.
I didn't realize that it didn't have to be paid at,
We'd
which,
like it to be, but we also, as we've all said at many of these meetings, we don't want money to be an obstacle for a kid not being able to participate. So the hope is, by us being able to front that, the students can then work that debt off. And what happens is, there's a very select few that choose not to do any of the fundraising opportunities. And again, these are just like go and work, the craft fair.
Right.
Go and work the auction, go and work the satellite store at basketball games. These are all opportunities to chisel down that debt. And some of the kids that Jeff is referring to were extremely busy with work and sports and school, and they chose not to. So, when they got to the point where it's like, okay, well, you owe the school, $300 for the DECA, and they're like, oh my God, I forgot all about that. And it's like, yeah, we need that before you can graduate.
all right,
I
I
wish
guess
it was
I was
only-
unaware that was the,
It's a lot
the
more than
trips are
300.
expensive, yeah.
If they go to all three, you're talking, you could be talking $600, $700, $800 if they do.
At least, yeah, yeah.
If they don't do any of the
Yeah.
fundraising, especially when they had to go to California, because the last one, the ICDC, rotates between multiple states.
Right,
And you can imagine the airfare to California as compared to Orlando.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 400.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have senior privileges.
Yes.
His favorite.
And I talked with Jamie, moving forward, we're gonna group this in when the seniors come to ask for permission for the senior prom. So that's gonna
That's a
be.
good idea.
Yeah, Jamie and I talked about it, and we said, moving forward, that would be a nice way to do it, so no one forgets. So we're here today to ask approval for our students that are seniors that meet a very select criteria to be able to have senior privileges. I did some number crunching, and we have 39 seniors who have met the criteria for senior privileges and have chosen to take senior privileges. So there are some kids that are interested in taking an extra art class, so they wouldn't necessarily look to be on a senior privilege. There are some kids that might not meet the criteria as well, so that's why they would not be on so that's where we're at with senior privileges. Just to refresh your memory, the students have to have and maintain 95% attendance rate. They have to maintain an overall GPA of 80 or above. Many of them are in the 90s, and they can't have any Ds or Fs in class. They have to be debt-free as well, and they have to have parental approval. So that's kind of the criteria, just to refresh your memory on that. And certainly, I would entertain any questions you may have on.
What are the actual privileges themselves?
So the privileges themselves, so they would have a senior privilege period in their schedule. It could be for a half year, or it could be for a full year, depending on, again, what they want or what they may need. If the parents sign off for them to be able to leave school, they can leave for that period and that period only. They cannot leave during advisory, during lunch. They can leave only for that period. We have 17 students that have sign-offs to be able to leave during that period out of the 39. And basically, if they don't have a car, they're not looking to sign out of school. And what's interesting is, as we get to the colder months, most of the kids don't want to leave. It's more something we see in the spring than any other time of the year.
Does that mean like when it's first period, they could arrive late to school?
They can't arrive,
Or
they have
leave?
to come in and sign in. So it's nice when you have the last period, which for us is period 4 and 8. They can sign out and leave for that last period. Some kids like to have it during one of the lunch periods, and then they can sign out during that whole period and get something to eat. It does get expensive. The majority of kids stay it's scheduled for the library. 95% of the kids stay in the library. It's interesting, a lot of seniors don't have licenses yet and don't have cars, and I assume it's because of the cost of driver's ed and insurance. So majority of kids stay right in the library and use it as a study hall. It's, I get a chance to go in there quite frequently, and they take advantage of it. And a lot of these kids are taking AP, IB courses, some kids doing dual enrollment. So those kids are all in there, and they're very focused. There's not a lot of kids that leave.
Dylan was a kid that left. He,
Go ahead.
So, two things. One is, I'd like to hear Emma's thoughts on senior privileges.
I am one of the kids that leave, so I'm kind of maybe,
She's on, I got her on the list. She's right in the middle.
I might be sort of a minority in that, but I think that the senior privileges are great. It really, like you said, Mr. Palladino, I think it's a great opportunity to be able to get work done. I know I'm in AP Calculus this year, so when I have like the long block of the day is senior privs, I'll go out and get myself lunch, but I'll come back with time to work on my AP Calculus work, and it does help to kind of stay on top of things. And it's just a great period to have. I feel like it's kind of like a reward for when you have the chance to have it, because you've been through these 5 years of the high school, you meet the requirements, so it really is a nice opportunity, and you feel that like you kind of, like you worked for it, and you're being given like a privilege, as it's called. But I think it is great for students, and I think it is great for getting work done. I think a lot of people are able to kind of take it as an opportunity for that. So I think it's been great throughout the school.
And if I can kind of dovetail on that, these are students that in many cases, if we had to schedule a class, we don't have a class to schedule for them. These are 39 kids that I've met. They've taken most of our electives. We don't have a lot of electives to offer, so from a scheduling standpoint, it helps us out to let other students take these classes we might have to force them to take, because there may only be, one elective. The period Emma has senior privileges, and it may be something she's not interested in, and so we'd have to force those kids in there if it's even a class they haven't taken. In many cases, the seniors, because they've been with us for 5 years and we only have so many electives, there aren't any options. So it also, like I said, it frees up courses for other students. The kids talk about it probably as early as like sophomore year, that they're working hard because they want to, senior year, they want to have that privilege. It's really something that they pay close attention to. And I think it's a nice caveat for them when they, reach that criteria to be able to have that.
You won't be surprised, I have an increased sensitivity to debt. So
There seems to be a theme tonight.
Yeah, so you said they can't have any debt,
Right.
and I know you can have...
To sign out, they can't, to be able to sign out, they can't have debt.
Okay, well, okay, that's a little better, but the point is that you can have privileges and lose them.
Correct. We every term, so I brought my spreadsheet here with every kid that's in it, and there's check boxes that it's got the GPA, whether they met the GPA checked, and then we're in term 2 now, so they're keeping an eye on the students in term 2. Then we have attendance, permission slip, everything's got, the deans, Ms. Sinelli, are one of our deans. She manages this whole thing, and they're constantly checking to make sure the students are where they need to be, and if they're not, to your point, yes, they can be removed.
So what I'm hearing is, if they're an active DECA participant, they're really busy, they're low income, they could lose senior privileges.
No, they can't lose senior privileges. They wouldn't be, they have to be debt-free to be able to sign out for, that period.
But that's a portion of senior privileges.
The
Only for
bigger-
half the
The bigger
kids.
portion, really, and 90-some-odd% of the students, the privilege is having the period without an academic class and being able to spend the time to study.
So the only thing they really lose by having debt is the ability to leave the building. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. They're not losing senior privileges. And honestly, it's checked at the beginning of each term. Most of these kids don't have debt until term 4. Most of the DECA debt doesn't come in until a few weeks before graduation.
I understand. Okay. So, Emma, you think debt is not an issue?
I haven't heard,
Anybody complaining about,
no, I mean, I
Losing-
have lots of friends in DECA, and they're still participating in senior privileges. They're able to utilize the time in school or go out, so I haven't heard any issues with DECA and senior privileges.
They haven't gone anywhere yet to accrue any debt at this point, so it's really the DECA does a nice job of turning it in very late, so it's not usually an issue. It's usually, all of a sudden, it's on there. The kids know about it, the kids get notified, but as far as the administration being notified, it comes in very late in the school year.
okay, I'm all set.
Other questions?
Not a question, but, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, you're first,
Oh,
then,
I was
Joyce.
gonna say, I know that for Dylan, it helped with, I think, time management too, and like knowing that like you have that freedom, and he was one of the few that would sign out, but he's also one that got it revoked and then really busted his butt to get it back. So it really kind of gave him that accountability piece, I think, when he was a senior, and I think it also helped him, when he was at school with like, you have to pay attention to the time you have to be back. You have to know, like, you're responsible for your time in that time. And I think that's beneficial for a lot of the kids. That gives them that taste of like what that, academic freedom when they have to kind of be on their own will be the following year, so.
And the policy's nice because basically it says my decision is final on who gets revoked and who doesn't, so there's a lot of leverage for me on that policy.
Joyce?
So I wasn't going to bore everyone with my, with my stance on senior privileges this year, but I just want Emma to know that when I vote no, it's not because I recognize that you've worked hard and that this is a privilege and that you've looked forward to having this. That's not what I'm opposed to. I'm opposed to the leaving of the school, because for a couple of reasons. One of them is that I feel like we work hard to create a culture in the school. You work hard to create a culture in the school where we want kids to want to be, not to want to leave. And as a parent, the idea of kids out driving around in the middle of the day when they don't have to be, that bothers me. And yes, my daughter did total her car while she was on senior privileges, full disclosure. So when I vote no, it won't matter, it'll still pass, but that's why. So I still recognize that you've all worked very hard, and I'm glad that the time piece of it is valuable to you in school and, for you to be able to get that work done. So that's all.
Thank you for sharing that.
To Joyce's point, they sign out, now I'm looking at the superintendent. They sign out. They total their car,
I hope not.
It happens.
happens, okay? Does the school district have any liability for what happens during the time that they've signed out? Or is that signing out remove us from all responsibility associated with the kid?
I don't have an answer for you. I'd have to speak to our attorneys on that one.
It does seem to me that that's, we need to consider that.
If the parent signs off, though, would it be any different than a parent signing a kid out of the building any other time?
Nope.
I was told it's treated like a dismissal as far as that goes.
Well, that would be my question. If it's
I don't
if it's
know.
like a dismissal.
I didn't answer the question knowing the
Right,
answer.
Right, right.
Ask the question, rather.
I certainly can find the answer for you.
Okay, so I want to reserve the right to bring this back up if your answer is, we're still responsible for that student.
Well, so what kind of form does the parent sign?
It's a permission form.
Yeah.
Basically, it says they're authorizing the student to be able to leave the school. It's just very similar to if you came in and dismissed one of your children from school. So it's a very similar form that they have to fill out, and it also highlights, all the requirements and how it can be revoked and all the, all that boilerplate type stuff.
So if we make a motion and vote on this tonight, we're voting on this policy. However, if we find information that the school might be liable for someone leaving the building, we would revisit
Come
that
back.
portion of senior privileges.
Fair enough.
That's
Is that
all.
fair? Yes. Okay. So can I have a motion to approve senior privileges?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained? 3-1-0. 3-1-0.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
All right, we have the student representative report, so Emma, you are up.
Thank you. So first, winter sports have begun recently, and the first few games have been taking place. I know a lot of kids were excited for their upcoming sports season, so I think everything's off to a good start there. Next was that last week on Wednesday, we were just talking about DECA. They brought homemade cookies and holiday cards to All-American Assisted Living here in Wareham. And I was actually one of the people that was there. We got a lot of kids that came by during advisory in Miss Cunha's room to make holiday cards, and people brought in cookies that they made on their own time. And we were able to actually walk through the nursing home and hand them out. So that was a really exciting experience. And I know there was actually one community member that reached out to one of the kids and was like, hey, there was a picture posted and my mom was there, and we just really appreciate that you were able to do this sort of thing for our community. So it was really a big hit, and it was very exciting. It was the first year that DECA did this, so that was really exciting.
Very nice.
Thank you. We were glad we could do it. Next up is that the Drama Club just performed their winter play Frankenstein. I believe it was last week. I think it was Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And I know the Drama Club is under new advisement by Mr. Farrow, and the production went well. I heard a lot of drama kids that were also really looking forward to their performance. The music program just performed their winter concert last night. And again, students were excited about that. You see, it's great with these events because you see kids walking throughout the day and they're talking about their event, they're dressed up for it. So you really see the excitement that kids kind of build up for it. For the holidays, the free student gift shop returned today. Mr. Murray ran it. It was started years ago by a retired guidance counselor, and it allows teachers to bring in items and donate them. And during lunch, kids can go into a room and they form a line, they go through, they pick out one item, and teachers wrap the gift, give it to the kids, and the kids can take it home to give someone for the holidays. So it usually sees a great turnout, and this year was no exception. So people were really looking forward to that, and it's always a big hit. And it's a great way to kind of help out kids at the school if they might have a tough time during the holidays. I know I've done it in the past, so it's always great, and it's a really nice opportunity. Culinary and JROTC just delivered food to veterans at the Kendrick House. Various culinary classes work together to make different parts of a dinner that they drop off. And JROTC brings coffee and donuts for social time with the veterans. They also bring cards, which they put some gift certificates in to hand out. So that's a really nice opportunity to kind of reach out to the community. And I think the teachers are really glad that they can include their kids in that. And finally, Ugly Sweater Day is tomorrow to kick off the holiday break. I know I've seen some social media accounts for the school posting about it, so I think people will probably be excited for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Emma? Emma, thank you.
All good.
All right, up next, so we're going to table the CPAC report for tonight, and we will move forward with the food service presentation. Mr. Russo.
Good evening.
Hello.
I know that all of you have already received and have in front of you the slides, so I won't dive into great depth, but on the first slide for our financials, there are a couple quick things I'd like to bring your attention to. If you look on the far left, under the July column, you'll see that at the beginning of last school year, so in July of 2023, we had $517,000 in change that had been rolled from the previous school year. If you go to the bottom right-hand corner of that slide, you'll see that it, circled in red is 18,000 and change. Basically, that is the delta, the difference between how much we made and how much we spent. So we actually spent $18,000 more than we brought in, which gave us a net balance at the end of last school year on June 30th of $499,000 and change. The one thing that I would say is, not trying to candy coat it, but we were shooting to be at break even exactly. and we kind of overshot it a little bit. Basically, we have a federal requirement because of our federal reimbursement funds that we're only allowed to carry a certain amount from year to year. It's basically 3 months' worth of expenditures. And so it's much better to come in under that than to exceed it. And then we're required to do a process with the state and develop a plan and get their approval on how we're going to spend down and such. So the goal was to come in under that cap, and we did, but we actually spent a little bit more money than we took in. Any questions on that slide? Sir.
Jeff?
Where's the money sitting?
TD Bank. So the food service department has a account that was set up by the town treasurer with TD Bank.
What kind of account is it?
It's
Because I calculated, it looks like you're making a little bit over 4% on the money.
yes, sir. It's an interest-bearing account, and it's about 4%.
It's a whole lot
3 to
better than a
4%.
checking account, and frankly, it's probably better than a savings account.
I don't know what type of
The
account.
treasurer is responsible for it.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay.
We're not allowed, like, we don't have a checkbook, we don't write, it's, money is just transferred in and out of it to compensate the town as the bill, each month as the bills are paid or as revenue comes in. But the type of account it is, I don't know.
Well, over 4% is respectable. If you're thinking about next year, though, you can probably expect to get less than that.
Yes, sir. But having said that, I mean, we made, how much did we make? 14,000 in interest, which is really nice. I wouldn't expect to make that much next year, but
No.
it's always,
You shouldn't budget for that much next year.
yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Kristen, any comment on that? Do you and John ever talk about that account?
No, no.
Don't need to.
No, we don't. The program is very well run, and the money is, deposited.
Oh, I'm sure that's the case.
Right, the money is deposited per the federal regulations. It runs through the accounts payable system that you see every week with the
Yep.
warrant. And these are the reports that the food service departments have to keep for DESI. So it's fairly standard, and fortunately, by statute, the food service program gets to keep the interest on the account. And that's not the
Exactly.
case in some of our other funds. So that is very fortunate that it gets recorded to food service.
Yeah, it's not a trivial sum, and of course, back when interest rates were next to nothing, you were earning next to nothing
Right.
on your money, so it's not an unimportant part of your line item. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Moving on to the next slide. This shows how we've been doing year-to-date. You will see that in the July column, we rolled from last school year to this school year, 499,000 and change. The bottom right-hand corner, you'll see circled in red, $9,397. That is, basically, we've spent $9,300 more this year than we've taken in so far. I will say that every November, we are in the red. Last year, we were $15,000 in the red in November. But then what happens is we have other months that are big money makers. We have many more school days during that year, during that month, so our reimbursements are much more significant. And so in January, March, May, we make a lot of revenue that ends up putting us well into the positive. The only other thing to point out on this slide is you'll see circled in red under the month of October in expenditures, 42,000 and change. That was we have in the Wareham High School kitchen a steam cooking system that includes a couple very large kettles, a steam generator, and some steamers. And one of the steamers basically died last spring. The manufacturer no longer made repair parts for it, so we were required to replace that component of the steam system, and we ended up buying a new steamer and steam generator. We kept the kettles, which are over 30 years old and probably have many more decades of service in them. They're heavy-duty and doing great. But we did have to replace that portion, and that was a unplanned expense. So that was the $42,000 expenditure that you see there. Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
Any idea what the value is of your capital assets? I'm thinking from the point of view of if you depreciated them, which I know you don't.
Oh, we do, sir.
It's not a line item on your expenses, though.
No, sir, we just have to, once a year, we have to do I'm trying to remember the name of the report. We have to do a report for the state, which goes to the federal government as well, but it's our balance report at the end of the school year as of June 30th.
So you
And in
have
that-
go ahead, sorry.
And in that, we have to do a valuation on our equipment, and we depreciate it over 20 years. We have some equipment
All of
that...
it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everything that
Even
we
if the
have.
useful life is 5?
The way that, yes, sir. Basically, the way that I was taught to do it by DESI was just to go ahead and depreciate it over 20 years. I think that might be the average, or that might be the rule of thumb, but they basically said just depreciate it over 20 years. But we have some equipment that is well past 20 years, and some stuff that like you said, that breaks sooner than 20 years.
So, I disagree with Desi, but you're stuck with Desi. So if you did that 20-year depreciation, what would the annual depreciation expense be? Any idea?
I don't have the report in front of me,
Ballpark.
but I think we depreciate approximately $30,000 a year. It goes down about 30,000. So if that,
That's fine.
if I'm thinking correctly, I think we have somewhere around, the value would be several $100,000.
It's actually, the 30,000 is the key number I was looking for. Okay, so, are you spending $30,000 a year replacing equipment in general?
In general, no, we haven't had to.
Okay, so even though you have what I consider a pretty trivial deficit of $9,000, you have some flexibility in terms of expenses, because you could always say, oh, I'll replace that piece of equipment next year, if you wanted to. Because this 42,000 is a pretty big number, but what you're telling me is it's actually probably not all that significant.
Yes, sir.
I'm all set, thank you.
Yes, sir. Moving on to the next slide. Wareham Elementary School in 2024. Just wanted to point out a few of the things that we did budget-wise. We did some electrical upgrades in the kitchen and cafeteria. We added some additional circuits. We are currently upgrading the PA system in the kitchen, and what that means is simply that we're tying in 2 speakers into the kitchen, because they basically can't hear the announcements, and it is a little bit of a safety issue. And so over the Christmas break, this has been something I've been working on for like approximately a year. But we finally have it coming to fruition, and over the Christmas break, we'll be installing a couple PA speakers in the kitchen. Yes, sir.
So you're telling me this almost new school needed electrical upgrades? That makes me think, what did
I thought the same thing.
yeah, what did we do wrong?
Well, the situation that we came into, so in 2023, and then again this year in 2024, we've had to add some electrical circuits. I think the reason is the way it was designed was every piece of equipment had its place, and every piece of equipment had a plug-in, and that was it. There was zero flexibility. And so sometimes to support operations, you need to move equipment around. And
Enough said, got it, thank
yes,
you.
And then with regards to, on the safety mindset, we did add some new mats, and we remedied some trip hazards that were present in the kitchen as well. Moving on to the next slide, our participation rates. Just like last year, I'm showing a comparison of the previous year and the current year. So in the previous year, it's in gray, current year is in red, yellow, and blue. You'll see for breakfast, it's pretty darn close, and I'll jump ahead and say for all the schools, we're doing pretty well on participation. There's nothing dramatic here. So we're seeing that for breakfast, it's very comparable to last year, and we've broken through 70%. Our goal is to be in the 70s for breakfast and to try to be in the 80s for lunch participation rates. Going over to the lunch, you can see that we started off stronger than last school year, and that it's been doing well, and it's, as of November, it was approximately 72% participation. The participation rate is of students that are in school, that came to school that day. So on average, 72% in November of the students got a free lunch. 28% on average either brought a lunch or didn't eat a lunch or something, but they probably just brought lunch with them to school. But 72% took advantage of the free lunch. Moving on to the next slide. For Wareham Middle School, a couple of highlights from 2024. We, over the summer, procured a new dough machine, and with it, this school year in September, they started making whole grain breads, rolls, and buns from scratch. The nice thing about that is you're able to make the items, or make the dough fresh, and they are able to cook the bread the same morning that it's served. And so it is much more flavorful, and the kids they enjoyed a lot more of having a sub roll or a dinner roll that was cooked that morning rather than something that came in a package, which is very good and everything, but there's a big difference.
I also enjoy fresh baked bread. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Me.
And then again, going along the safety improvements line, I would say that we did install some new non-slip floor mats in some wet areas in the middle school kitchen. And when we get to the final slide of this set, you'll see some pictures, and one of them is some of the mats. Moving on to the participation rates, you'll see with regards to at the middle school with breakfast, we've tried to figure out why we had such a low participation rate in September. Don't know, but we were able to jump up significantly in October and November, and it's improving. One of the things that we're continuing to do this year that we did last year is the cafeteria manager there has been surveying the students to see what they like and they don't like. Tastes do change every year. Things that were a big hit last year are
Every year?
Every year, and it's just, you have to constantly be taking the pulse of what's popular and what's not. Obviously, we're a little limited on what we can provide because it has to comply with nutritional standards. But in any case, we have had a couple things that they've adjusted. They have one day a week, they have a hot breakfast. They're adding a little more fruit into fresh fruit as opposed to fruit cups, applesauce, raisins, and such, and trying to see if that helps improve the participation rates. With regards to lunch, it almost mirrors last year, very strong in the 80s. The only difference between last year and this year is that last November, the middle school was at 83% participation, and this November, they were at 82%. So again, it's a very strong participation rate. They're setting the standard for the other schools, and we're very happy with an 80-something% participation rate. Moving on to Wareham High School. I've already mentioned the new steam generator and steamer. Also, we purchased some new tables and Viking trash cans, which I'll mention and discuss when we get to the final slide. We also, the food service department, funded an IT upgrade to the sound system in the cafeteria. And we also supported some equipment purchases for the culinary department, some mixers, a hand washing station, smallwares such as pots, pans, and various cookware items.
I love the fact that you did it. Money is not necessarily fungible, right, between food services and the LEA, right? So the fact that Mike is talking about supported purchases for the LEA, is there any legality associated with doing that?
I know that Mr. Russo has had conversations with DESI on certain purchases and gets pre-approval for it. And there are the indirect costs that help support the LEA also through DESI, but.
But this
some
is
of the-
separate and distinct from the indirect costs that we in
Correct,
fact budget for
correct,
those
correct.
indirect costs.
Correct.
This is separate. And bottom line is, you went to DESI and said, I want to do this, and they said, fine.
I went to DESI and said that in the way of nutritional education, we'd like to support the culinary department. We are the food and nutritional I'm the food and nutritional services director. And so in support of nutritional education, we are allowed to provide some funding to the culinary department.
I'm thrilled to hear that DESI has some flexibility in their bureaucracy.
It all, you have to ask the right person, sir.
Then kudos to you for finding the right person.
Yes, sir.
Clearly ask the right way.
And you have to make sure that on some of the times, you have to make sure you have the email
I was
documentation
about
to back it
say,
up
yes,
afterwards.
documentation is critical.
Yes, yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Let me see, moving on to the high school participation rates. Similar to last year, we started out in around 39% for breakfast, but it has had a very good improvement for breakfast, and we're into the 50s for October and November. To be quite frank, anything in the 50s for the high school is fantastic. The students love to come to school with Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, what have you. They come with food with them that they just bought at wherever. And so getting students to take one of the free breakfasts is pretty hard at the high school level. And so we are very happy to be in the 50% participation rate there. With regards to lunch, it's pretty similar to last year. I believe we're at about 72% for the month of November, and you can see it's ticking upwards. That's where we want to be, and we want to keep on improving. Last year, we never broke 80, but we were in the mid-70s, and we would love to be in the mid to upper 70s again this year with a goal of achieving 80%. But that, you can achieve it on any given day, but achieving it for a month is really hard. Yes, sir.
Emma, I'm going to ask you what you think, and he's tough. He can take it.
Well, I've never had school lunch. I have allergy issues, so I sorry to say I'm not the most knowledgeable on this, but I know a lot of my friends get lunch. I know a mix of people who bring their own lunch who get lunch, and the kids who I know that do get lunch, it seems to serve them well. And I know that there are days that kids, like, they'll bring their own lunch and they'll still be saying, oh, I want to go get the lunch that they're serving today. They have, something really good. So I know that there's definitely meals that kids get excited about, and I think everyone's really happy to have the lunches that they do at the school.
So, no complaints.
No, none that I know of.
And I will say that with regards to dietary restrictions, allergies and such, we can certainly accommodate. So if there was ever, if anything, as long as we have, the school nurse is our gatekeeper. And as long as it's been validated by the school nurse, we can accommodate pretty much any dietary or dietary restriction or allergy requirement. So I would encourage you, if there's something that we could make for you, to let us know.
Thank you. I should say that I have I know there's always been like salad available, or there's something that could always work for me. It's been like we have to figure out, it's been a whole journey with allergies for me, so it's
Yeah.
a little more than just, oh, it's a nut allergy or something, but there's always been an option to work with someone, or there has been usually a lunch option that I could get. So
Good,
it's just been
okay.
easier for me personally, because it's been a little more difficult, but I know that there's always an option, even if someone has allergies, so
Okay,
I appreciate it, thank you.
thank you.
You guys do good.
Moving on to the final slide. So I included some pictures, and if you go to the far left, that is a picture of the dough machine that we use and can make different sizes. It cuts into various different sizes of dough. Looking in the middle, the blue table that you see in the top center, we bought a bunch of those outdoor tables last year, but we neglected to buy one that was ADA compliant, American with Disabilities Act. So when we had a student who was in a wheelchair who wanted to eat with their friends, they wouldn't be able to because we didn't have an appropriate table. So that was pointed out to us, so we remedied that. You'll see next to it, just one of the tables that's in the cafeteria. There were several that were deteriorating, that were damaged. We replaced those. Going directly beneath that, you'll see one of the Viking trash cans. There were already 2 of those in the cafeteria that had been there for several years. We added 2 more. And then to the left of that, that's just an example of some of the mats. There are some heavy-duty floor mats that can be in very wet areas and keep, in this case, it was taken in the dish room. It keeps the staff from slipping on water that's splashing as they're washing the dishes and such. And then moving over to the far right, that's our brand spanking new steamer, steam generator with the steam jacket above it, the 2 steam compartments that we can put multiple trays of food in, and it's been working very well. And pending any questions, that is my report.
Jeff?
I'm not trying to be political about this question, but the presumably incoming secretary, of Health and Human Services has some strong feelings about the health and the food that Americans eat. Do you have any reservations about what you're providing to our students?
No. The USDA standards are dramatically different today than they were 15 years ago. The food is a whole lot healthier. We used to have friolators and various other things. There was a high fat content. There was a high sugar content in the food. That has been eliminated, and with the choices that are available. And we are, one of the things that has been noted is there is still a concern, and I share it, with regards to the amount of sugar and salt in our foods. Not so much salt personally, but I think we still have a high level of sugar, especially in our breakfast foods that we provide. And it's very hard to find from our vendors, from our manufacturers, low sugar options. So one of the things that is in place is over the next couple of years, the regulation has already been approved, it's already in place by the federal government. The sugar amounts in our food are going to actually be coming down further. And I think that one of my big reservations is on the amount of sugar that we have. The other has to do with whole grain. Right now, the requirements are that if you do the math properly week to week, you can get away with serving a couple items that are not whole grain, that have maybe bleached flour in them or what have you. Basically, since I took over 5 years ago, I've mandated that everything has to be whole grain. Number one, it makes life a lot easier because then you don't have to figure out if you're within compliance from week to week, how much whole grain stuff did I serve, how much non-whole grain. But also, when we look at what's available, a lot of it has very little nutritional value, doesn't have any fiber in it, and that's one of the reasons for some of the health issues that we have. So I don't have any reservations on the food that we're serving, and I'm happy to say that with regards to whole grain and sugar and salt, that the regulations are tightening up even more over the next 2 years. And what that will do for us is that the manufacturers, in order to make money and sell to us, are going to be providing more options that are lower in sugar. And they're not going to, hopefully, they're not going to be putting in sugar substitutes. They're just going to be reducing the amount of sugar. Several of them have already signed on and said that that was the way forward, that they're not going to just put in artificial sweeteners. They're actually just going to reduce the amount of sugar in their food. So I think we're good where we are, and I think we're getting better.
How about the amount of highly processed food? Do we serve much highly processed food?
In a way, sometimes that's unavoidable, and the answer is yes, more so for breakfast than for lunch. When you do breakfast in a classroom, it's a lot different than doing it in a cafeteria where you can cook it right there in the cafeteria. Basically, we're delivering something, maybe a muffin, and it's a whole grain muffin, but it's still very much processed. When you look at the ingredients in it, there are 20-something ingredients. It's gone through a lot of processing and such. So there are some highly processed items that we do serve, but I would say the majority are not highly processed. But if you look at a Pop-Tart, that's a highly processed food. Even though we serve the whole grain version of it, it's still a highly processed food. We try to avoid as much as possible the highly processed foods, and I would say especially for the lunches, which we are preparing in the kitchens, we definitely are able to steer away from highly processed foods. We even try to avoid using lunch meat. We do use some lunch meat, but we try to use more of, for example, diced chicken instead of sliced lunch meat chicken, et cetera. We try to go to options where we're cooking the stuff ourselves, and it's not something that's been pre-processed, pre-packaged, et cetera.
Thank you, Mike. I always enjoy your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your clarity. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have public participation. Would anyone like to address the committee tonight? Seeing no one, we'll move on to Director of Finance report. Kristen?
Thank you. So in your packet, you have the November reports. Right now, there's nothing extraordinary to report, so that's good. We're continuing to watch the major categories of salaries, out-of-district tuitions, and out-of-district transportation. Right now, we're breaking even to running a small deficit in salaries. We have some open positions that are factored in. If they're filled, that we will be running a small deficit, but it's nothing that we can't cover right now. So time will tell with that, but we are watching salaries closely. And the same goes for out-of-district transportation. We will likely have a budget transfer request in one of the next school committee meetings for that. We've had some new students requiring transportation, and in some students, their transportation changed. Sometimes it's less costly, more costly. So this is one line item that's constantly changing, more so this year than any other year, but it is very volatile in a lot of years. So we'll be looking at that very closely, and also out-of-district tuition. We're also breaking even with that right now, but we do have some new students that may be enrolling in out-of-district placements. So time will tell on that. So those are the three line items that we really, areas of the budget that we really need to continue to keep a close watch on. Other than that, everything else is going pretty much according to plan.
Good news. Jeff?
Kind of a tricky question. Transportation. We have to do certain things. And when we can't do it ourselves, we have to hire people to do it for us. Do you think, believe it or not, I'm asking this question, do you think our recruitment and what we're paying for the people that we are our employees is enough to minimize what we have to hire outside forces people to do for us? It's a tough balancing act,
Right,
isn't it?
correct. I think we have a competitive wage, first of all. I think the biggest problem is the lack of the workforce, as in, is everybody's looking for bus drivers.
That hasn't
Everyone
changed.
hasn't changed.
We just hired 3 more.
Which is excellent.
Yeah.
And we did do a nice recruitment campaign. We got the word out, and fortunately, we were able to attract some drivers, which is great.
I think we have a good reputation, too. That's my sense in talking to drivers and even people outside of the district.
I know, especially since the pandemic, it was difficult to find drivers before, and it's even more difficult now. And that's not, that's not particular to Wareham. Everyone
I know.
that I, am friendly with in schools has that same difficulty.
So it hasn't gotten better. If
Hasn't
anything,
gotten
it's gotten
better.
worse.
I think it's gotten a little bit better for us because we have been able to attract some drivers, but I think sometimes just the workforce isn't there. Right now, we're doing okay. We would love to have another driver to maybe start taking back some of those costly out-of-district runs. And so we're gonna keep trying with that.
And the town has been, my sense, very cooperative about getting us new vehicles.
Absolutely, yes.
Because you'd hate to be a driver driving a substandard vehicle, but I don't hear complaints about that either.
No, we are purchasing buses, we're getting funded for buses, so that is not the issue with our.
So in your
with our
mind, we're
buses.
doing everything we can to minimize the impact of the shortage of just people to hire.
Oh, absolutely. Anywhere from trying to step up our recruitment efforts to looking at the out-of-district routes, trying to find some cost savings, speaking with other school districts, other school business managers to see if they have students going to placements that we could possibly, combine the routes. Sometimes that's not always easy because of the distance, but we do try to work together. The Cape Cod Collaborative does a nice job every month, and we meet with the surrounding business managers, and they have a nice spreadsheet, and we've all, cultivated a friendship, and we'll reach out to each other when we have some routes that we have difficulty finding. So we are trying, and it's just a very high cost, unpredictable, area of the school budget. Sometimes, you have a student that comes with an out-of-district placement that moves in, and you need to find that student transportation almost right away. Same thing with any homeless or foster student. So it's very difficult, and I think that Marie, our transportation director, does a great job of balancing running the in-district buses and running the, overseeing the out-of-district fleet too. By that, I mean soliciting vendors. She's cultivated relationships with vendors and is able to turn around and get students on buses in a shorter amount of time than we were doing it. So that's important too. But I think that there's a lot of vendors out there, and they realize that this is a profitable business for them. So I think there is, some degree that they understand that this is a service that the schools need and have to pay for.
So for the superintendent's ears, the common complaint I hear, and by the way, I think the morale in the department is pretty good. The common complaint I hear is that a very small percentage of our student population can be very disruptive, and the response of the principals to these disruptive students is not always what they would like. They would like to feel more supported by their reporting of bad behavior. So FYI, I don't expect you to respond, but just FYI, that's what I hear most often, that the drivers really struggle with, for what it's worth.
Well, I do know that the principals do respond and take it very seriously, so.
Okay.
It's always a balancing
I
act.
know it's a balancing act, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. So we have the FY26 budget that we need to vote on this evening, and that's at this point in the agenda. So Dr. DeAndrea.
Right, so that was the $35,929,987 FY26 proposed budget, 3.75%. That was presented at the last meeting. I'm sorry, was presented at the public hearing, and I asked that the committee vote that number.
So moved.
I have a question.
April, question?
Yeah, so I know that this was presented at the joint hearing with the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, but does this, because obviously what we initially asked was closer to 6, and we came to the agreement of the 3.75. Do you have an idea of what we have to cut to get to that number yet? Is it what positions or what, like, is it positions? Is it like, more like supply line items? Is it non-renewals after retirements? Do you have an idea of how you're getting to
So,
that?
yeah,
From what we needed to be level?
Just at our, kind of at the level you just said, it's probably gonna have to be a combination of all of those things. Exactly where that will come from, what positions will be eliminated, I don't. That's something I'm gonna be working with the principals, through January. Looking at our personnel, looking at, our positions, class sizes, everything, to see where we can find savings that can help get to that number. There's also a number of other pieces that we'll be watching, like the tuitions, out-of-district tuitions, students going out of district, students coming back, Chapter 70 money. There's a lot of things that can affect what that's gonna look like. So it's really hard to say at this time exactly what that's gonna look like.
Okay, thank you.
Joyce?
So I just want to say that it does reflect, I'm not sure if you said this or not, but it does reflect the 3.75% from the town, which is a reasonable increase in the budget, even though we'd like it to be more. And I just want to note that the town, and for as many years as I can remember now, has been very supportive of the school department. So I have no doubt that, like you mentioned, Chapter 70, we don't even know what that is yet. The town doesn't know what that is. So I just want to point out that the town has been very supportive, and I expect that that would continue.
Agreed.
Jeff?
Yeah, I completely agree with both my colleagues. I even believe, because the town administrator has been as supportive as he, over the years, that if Chapter 70 comes through with more than we anticipate, that we will get a fair portion of that extra money.
That has happened in the past.
It has happened.
Yeah.
So the precedent has been set. It's not like we have to fight for it. He just volunteers it. So I greatly appreciate the support. A quick question for Emma. I know this is going to be a huge, open-ended, maybe even provocative question. Did you ever wish you had gone to a different high school?
No, honestly, I think I've been really happy at Wareham High School. And I know there's choices of like school choice to Old Rochester or
Exactly.
other places, but I think that Wareham High School genuinely gave me choices that I wouldn't have had at other schools. And, there's always the thought of, oh, do I want to look into somewhere else or something? But I don't think I would have been happier at a different high school than I was here. And I'm really happy that I got my 5 years at the high school and everything that it's provided me. I've gotten a lot of great opportunities, so I've enjoyed it.
For the record, did you know I was going to ask that question?
Nope. I did not.
Because that's a great answer. Thank you.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. DeAndrea, you mentioned in your superintendent's letter that we will be voting net and non-net at a future meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Same as we did last year.
Okay. All right. So if I abstain tonight, I will
I'll second
participate in
the
that vote.
motion, by the way, for the vote. No, we only had a motion, but I'll second it.
Do I need did I make a motion yet?
Some,
No,
Jeff
Jeff did.
Oh, you made the motion, I'm sorry. Oh,
I'm seconding,
Yes.
after questions.
thank you very much. Oh, got you, all right. So we have a second. So all in favor of accepting the proposed budget figures, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 1, so 301. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. DeAndrea, it's your report.
Okay, in the interim, I've had a few communications with our attorney about senior privileges.
No? Wow.
How very efficient,
Modern
how
technology.
very efficient of you.
And as expected, it's always a gray area.
He equivocated. I can't believe he
So,
equivocated.
the policy, specifically the permission slip, would not allow for an argument that the district was negligent or at fault for an accident. Okay?
I'm waiting for the but.
Okay? That's the good news. However, it always leaves open the district is negligent in some other way. So, I mean, with all liability, right? If you're negligent, then you're at fault.
Yes.
So if somehow we are shown to be negligent in some other way, we could be held liable.
So if we didn't follow our own policies,
But
That
the
is clear as
permission
mud.
slip does give us some level of protection. Does give us, as he said, it's lawyer language, wouldn't allow for an argument that the district was negligent or at fault.
I don't think we can get better than that.
Yeah.
Not out of Greg. Thank you.
Okay, oh, I'm not done. All right, so custodial contract, we negotiated, came to an agreement with the custodians. Over the 3 years, 2.5% in each of the 3 years. I ask that you ratify that so we can have a 3-year contract for our custodians from 2025 to 2028.
So moved.
Second.
I just want to say, as in any negotiation, thank you to the members and to the union who negotiated that.
All right. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400. And if anyone wants more details on that contract, they can contact the superintendent's office.
Okay, I also, you have the superintendent's newsletter, the payroll and bill warrants. I ask that you approve those.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, 400.
I have a few gifts that I ask that you accept. Lois Ladd has donated hats and gloves to the Wareham Middle School. This is something that happens every year, the Giving Tree.
She's amazing.
Do you want to just do them all together?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman? Okay, Michael and Julie Vargo from the Villa Vargo Charitable Fund at Schwab Charitable have gifted $1,000 to our Unified Sports Program. So thank you to those folks. And $20,000 from Maurice and Ann Makepeace Family Foundation. Every year they donate money, so thank you to them. That certainly goes to good use. And finally, there is an additional one from an onset resident, Noah Young, and this is also a reoccurring donation for our arts programs, $75 for the music program at the elementary school and $75 to the middle school drama for a total of $150. So thank you to all of these folks for their generosity.
Motion to accept and thank the donors.
Second.
Quick question. If someone donates money to in this case, the Unified Sports Program, does it go to the boosters? Where does it go?
It goes into a specific gift account that's recorded in the school financial program. So there's a specific identified account for that gift. And it's to be dispersed, it's to be used as how the donor specifies.
So it goes into a specific account unrelated to the boosters.
Correct.
And it's restricted within that account.
That's correct.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, that is all I have.
Did we vote on that yet?
We had two motions, but we
Okay,
didn't vote.
so we have
Oh,
two
I'm
motions,
sorry.
so we have to vote. So all in favor of accepting those generous gifts, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400.
And thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is it?
That's it.
All right. Next up, we have a report from the school committee, so an update from the Mask delegate report.
That would be me, yes. So, as you know, November was the MASC joint conference, my favorite time of year. It's my Christmas, where the delegate assembly votes to go through resolutions that were presented to then hopefully work towards MASC and legislation for moving these along. So I'll try to be brief. There were a bunch of expiring resolutions that had been previously voted that were unanimously approved to continue to attempt to legislate. So those were banning polystyrene from schools, pertaining to educator diversity and professional licensure, full funding of transportation costs for students in foster and state care, poverty in children, access to mental supplies, charter school reform, climate change, mandatory recess, anti-racism, prohibiting the use of Native American mascots, and full funding for individuals with disabilities education. So all of the details on those you can find on the MASC website under resources. So if anyone wants to follow up on those previous resolutions, they can. There were 10 resolutions presented at the assembly. 2 of them were pushed through on a quick kind of vote, and that was for school bus stop armed surveillance and enforcement and expansion and capacity of Chapter 74 vocational technical programs. So those were pushed through and voted to be accepted. So the first resolution that they had was the development of an alternate to high-stakes MCAS, which I know that's big. There was some amendments to that policy, but it was amended and approved. So it's it was resolved that MASC urges Massachusetts to develop an alternative benchmark and assessment tool to replace the high-stakes MCAS test. Until that time, I do believe that MCAS is still on the table, even though it is no longer a graduation requirement. It is still required by DESE for benchmarks and assessment, as we know. Resolution 2 was increasing the compulsory attendance age, and that to 18, and that was passed. Resolution 3 was for safe storage of firearms, and that was approved as submitted, and that's just urging MASC to work with their school committees and local law enforcement on the safe storage of firearms in their districts for their community. Resolution 5 is aligning taxing authority with required local contribution. That was also passed as presented. Resolution 6 was supportive legislation to improve the fiscal health of rural school districts. That was also passed. Resolution 7, fully adjusting Chapter 78 for inflation. That was approved and unanimously at that point. Resolution 8 was equitable funding for non-regional school districts with high transportation costs, and that one was also approved as presented. And Resolution 9 was MSBA grants evaluation for Chapter 74, and that was also approved as presented. So again, if anyone wants to know more specifically what those resolutions are, they are on the MASC website. And at the delegate assembly, after the delegate assembly, MASC is divided into 10 divisions. And at the Division 7, which is what we are a part of, I was nominated and voted to be the MASC Division 7 Secretary Treasurer starting January 1st. So I'm now part of MASC leadership as well as representing Wareham. So that's my report on the delegate assembly and the conference.
Thank you, congratulations. We have any other business? I just had one question. Going forward, would it be possible for the school committee members to receive the newsletters that principals give out to the community, that we could also get on that list? I'd just like to see,
Like
what-
an email distribution?
like an
list?
email, yes.
Yeah, I go looking for them, but it would be nice if they came by email.
Right, if we could just get them right in our inbox, would be going forward.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else, Joyce?
So I just have a question about a future agenda item. Is this a good
Okay.
time to bring that up?
Sure.
I just, talking about MCAS, and there's a lot of talk, I see a lot of articles about what will the graduation requirements be? And so if we could have that as an agenda item in Wareham.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We do need to do that.
And maybe it aligns with the course of studies discussion, I don't know, but yeah, going forward. Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do.
Great. All right, seeing no other school business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We'll give that to Joyce, got it just in.
Yeah, well, it's like a race this whole night, and I haven't gotten any of them.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 400. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
and
happy
Hanukkah,
holidays.
everyone.